Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, little children, small dogs and cats. You are now watching Team Destruction TV, where I am the Donbot. Today we'll be bringing to you yet another guide. This time we'll be talking about DPS and aggro management. Let's go. What is up, all of you beautiful people? Today we're going to be talking about DPS classes and aggro management in these DPS classes. We're talking about rogues, we're talking about monks, we're talking about rangers. What to do and how to do it. Basically, let's take rogue for an example right out the gate. Rogue is my passion. I love playing rogue. Most of the time it's pretty easy in TLP to play the rogue. We don't generate very much threat, and when we do generate threat we have a way to dump it, basically because of our toolkit. So backstab is a highly weighted action. It doesn't matter if you backstab for 45 damage, it doesn't matter if you backstab for 195 damage. It's going to carry the same amount of weight. If your tank is not generating enough threat, sometimes it will turn upon you. While you don't need to turn off your attack, you can turn off your attack a little bit to alleviate some aggro, but mainly you need to use your hide / your evade. Hiding when you're outside of combat makes you invisible. Hiding while you're in combat or while you're attacking will lower your threat to lower on the list. For instance, if the tank is tanking and you're DPSing, you're right underneath them, and the cleric decides to heal, the cleric will be a little bit higher. You might still be above them if you pull threat by jumping over the tank. If the tank does not taunt and you're holding threat, you can hide and you will go back underneath the tank. It will lower you by one spot on the list. It is not cumulative, so you can't spam hide and get to the bottom of the list where you're below the monk, you're below the cleric, your bottom of the list. Doesn't work like that. It's one position on the list if you are on top. So with that being said, you do need to watch your aggro when it comes down to a low gear tank or a low skill tank that doesn't really know how to generate a whole lot of threat. When it comes to monks, it's pretty simple. If you pull threat, you can flop. If you pull threat, you can soak up some damage till you have to mend, then you can flop. You save the cleric some mana, you save your druid some mana, you save your shaman some mana, any or all of the above. So, I mean, there's not much to say about monks. Monks are the highest DPS melee class in Classic. They're that way in Kunark as well, especially when they get their epic. Following that, you have the rangers. Rangers that don't understand the properties of Flame Lick will pull threat a lot. They'll pull threat a lot. When they get Emoliate, it's a lot less. But basically, Flame Lick is a threat holding tool. Really shouldn't be used for DPS unless your tank is an aggro monster, okay? Rangers don't get threat degeneration until they get their jolt spell. So once they have it, they're pretty much locked in, which means they have to turn off attack, they have to root the mob back up, whatever it is to get rid of the aggro, because if you are built like a glass cannon, you're going to soak up way more damage than the tank is. The tank's going to get kind of flustered because you're not letting him tank. Just don't do it. Your dots carry a lot of weight as far as aggro. Dots are huge aggro. Their weight is insane between the cast of it and the dot ticks. I apologize for the bad frame rate, guys, but to be fair, really, this video is all about the audio. With that being said, we'll move on to... Who's the other DPS class? Is that it? We'll talk about the casters then. So casters, they have a little bit more. Spells definitely cause a lot more weight than melee for sure. If you're Necro, your dots are huge weight when it comes to aggro management. You might get a dot off and you might be fine. But if it ticks a couple of times, the overall weight from the ticks itself might pull the mob back onto you. So you might cast it, you might sit down, you might be fine. But in 2 ticks, he's going to come running for your face. You should be mindful of that. If it swaps to you on HOTT, try standing up. If you stand up and it goes away, cool, stay standing. Probably can't sit till much later in the fight or until the fight's over. You always have the option of FD that costs mana. I understand. Practice your abjuration, guys, because you need to be able to FD. Because if you get overzealous and you pump too many dots into them, it doesn't matter if you're standing, where you run, doesn't matter where you hide, the mob is coming for your face. So aside from that, you have mages. Mages don't have any good CC. They don't have any CC at all to their disposal. They're full commitment class. If you throw your pet in, make sure you're standing. That way you don't get the threat modifier from sitting, so the mob doesn't come beat your face in just because you sent your pet. Also, when it comes down to nuking, you need to be mindful of when you decide to nuke. That way you can meditate after. If you nuke at 70%, you just go to sit down and the mob wants to come destroy your face, stand up. Stand up, hang out, give it another 10%, 15%, whatever, try sitting again. If it changes to you on HOTT again, stand up. Don't even bother till the end of the fight. You could probably get away with another nuke, but you're probably not going to get away with sitting down. Wizards nukes carry an ungodly amount of weight. My best advice for a wizard is don't bother nuking it until you're going to kill it. Rains are your most highest efficient nukes that you got, especially in Classic. So you want to rain somewhere around 60 or 50%, maybe 55. I usually like around 55. And most of the time that'll kill. With your group's DPS plus your added rain DPS, you'll probably do about 35% of the mob's health with that rain. So, you know, you're still putting out, and it gives you a whole lot of med time because you can med the entire time that they're pulling, and you can med the entire time that they're dealing DPS that you're waiting for the correct time to do. Enchanters don't have to worry about dealing DPS outside of their pet. They really shouldn't be in the conversation because they're CC class, but when it comes down to charm pet tanking and charm pet damage, it should be noted that an enchanter doesn't have to do anything other than send its pet, and it should always send its pet when it's standing up, and never when it's sitting. Never send your pet when you're sitting, because it's going to beeline for you. You don't need to take a hit, because the cleric wants to keep you topped off. If you take just a small hit, you only lose 15% of your health, and he spends 150 mana to top you off because he's worried about a charm break. That is not good for anybody. Let's see, we talked about the Necros, we talked about the Wizards, we talked about the Mages. Pretty much handles the majority of the DPS classes. Again, your job is to deal damage and be as invisible as you possibly can when it comes down to the threat list. The higher your DPS, the more you'll kill mobs. However, if your high DPS causes your healer to use more mana, you will still incur more meditation time required between fights. Depending on whether or not your group is built with CC or not, your role can be more utility than just damage. For instance, if you don't have any CC, wizards can root. If you pull in too much threat on a wizard because there's no good time to nuke, every time you throw a bomb, it's coming for you, then root before or root after. I advise rooting after because every nuke has a chance to break your root. I like to rain, and when my rain has started, I like to root, and then I like to start root again. If the second wave breaks my root, the third root's going to catch it. If the second wave doesn't break my root, then I'll probably cancel my cast on my second root. See what I'm saying? As long as it's rooted, you don't have to worry about anything because the tank's going to be in proximity. If root falls off afterwards, it's probably going to run after you, but usually that's alleviated whenever you stand up. So after you drop a couple of bombs, feel free to stand up the rest of the fight. My god, if you're a wizard, you should have clarity. I really hope that you get an enchanter in your group because that class is pretty much completely reliant on how much mana it can regenerate and not how big its mana pool is. When it comes down to mages and necros, again, if you don't have CC, use your pet's life as one of your resources. Try not to make the healer heal your pet. If for some reason your pet's soaking up a lot of damage, just use that. Make new pets to soak up more damage. Let your pet die, it's fine, because the amount of damage that he's going to deal is guaranteed. Your nukes are highly resistible. That's why they give you Mallow, and a lot of stuff in Classic likes to resist fire, not so much magic, so be aware that you can swap to magic. When it comes down to Necros, your Heat Bloodline has a negative 100 mod. Your Life Tap has a negative 100 magic mod. These are spells that are hardly ever resisted. If you're having trouble with your poisons, or maybe you're not spec'd Conjuring, you should probably stick to your Heat Bloodline or your Life Tap lines. Because, especially if you're Alteration spec'd, where you get the bonus from that, definitely stick to those lines. But yeah, if you want to keep the XP flowing in as fast as possible, know your role, do as much damage as you can while remaining invisible. Do not attract those heals. Thank you guys for listening to another one of our class guides. If you like what you hear, click that link down below. Join us in Discord, play video games with us. Sorry for the frame rate. My recording software is acting up really bad. But I just want to get this information out for the people who need it. So thanks for listening, and until next time, I'll catch you guys later.